essence is freedom. So essence of human being is freedom. That's what Dasein is about. That's what authentic Dasein is about. Inauthentic is when Dasein doesn't, because of the choice, freedom in the sense of choice, Dasein choose to, or unconsciously, or just because, for whatever reason, forget to choose or reject to choose to be itself, and collapse itself into they self or social self. So when you follow what is being followed around you and don't choose to be oneself, don't choose to be Dasein, that you're living an inauthentic life according to Heidegger. So at least in here, in his early philosophy, Heidegger's philosophy is highly individualistic, and he believes in that Dasein or human being has true self in a way, even if that true self is not any stable concept, but true self is the self which choose freedom. So, but it's still, in his conception, there is a conception, in his view, there's a conception of what it is to be truly human, what it is to be your own self, and that obviously influenced existentialism. So in that sense, you can't. A lot of people say that Sartre sort of misinterpreted Heidegger, but at least not in this sense. So this was the core of Sartre philosophy as well: to be oneself, to be free. This is a specific sort of individualism based on a conception of authentic self. I think he shares with Heidegger here. Sartre, I mean. Anyway, so Dasein has the freedom to choose to be itself, that is, to be authentic or inauthentic. So that's a choice. But what Heidegger would say, that he should choose to be authentic because that's his true self. The so-called freedom of the I self or they self, like a social self. But obviously, always within the boundaries of the thrownness infinitude. So there is a facticity which you can't overcome. The facticity is that you are thrown into this world without your choice, without being asked where you want to be born, and etc. So you are born into a particular locality, particular people, particular culture, etc. So that is overall finitude which you can't overcome. But within the ambit of that finitude, you have certain choice, and that choice is either to be free, that is to be oneself, or not to be oneself. So that's the basic concept so far. Okay, so that's his quote. Dasein can only be free. Dasein is human being. Dasein, to be there, can only be free in its positive possibilities, the positive freedom. And the idle talk, like the customs and the general public opinion that covers things up, has lost its effectiveness. And the common interest has died out, because common interest subsumes your own self within a larger self. So you have to reject that as your true self and step back and try to be your own self. That seems to be the concept. That seems to be the idea. So in that sense, there's nothing new here. That's the old debate between individualism and collectivism, but obviously with a twist, because this is existential at the level of your whole being. Okay, in SZ, that's Sein in Sight, his basic book, that's his early masterpiece, so-called. in Sein in Sight, Sein mean being, Insight mean time, Heidegger conceives of freedom in two ways: existential and existential. The former is the condition of the latter. Okay, Dasein has the freedom to choose itself only by being free. For this freedom and being free for it coincide with being free for the authenticity of its being as a possibility that is always already is. It's a lot of words here, but the basic point is clear. That is, you have possibility to choose, then within that possibility you either choose or you don't choose. Or you choose to be yourself, your true self, authentic self, realizing your potentiality, going against the grain, etc., or just being part of the they self, the social self, just go along what everybody else is doing. Okay, so authentic self might you might in my view you end up choosing what everybody is doing, but out of conscious choice. So even then, that would be a sort of authentic existence, I would say. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you ultimately reject your surroundings and your social mores and your social customs, etc. But you, at some point, you step back, you take, you throw out what you have collected from outside and lay bare yourself and your possibilities as much as possible, and think without pressure from outside what you want to be, I guess, and what is your true self. And one, in order for the other to be authentic, like to be his or her true self, that's existentially free, it must be free for its most defining possibility, the death. I think the death is sort of because social being is a sort of forgetfulness as well, yeah. And forgetfulness, that forgetfulness, I guess, breeds and also is in a way dependent on your own destiny, final destiny, death. But death is highly individualistic. Nobody else can die for you. So I guess death reminds you that you are not essentially social self, but you are alone in that way. You are your individual self. You have to face the burden of your finitude and your destiny, whatever it might be, on your own. And your social self, being part of the social or they self, essentially, is premised on your forgetting your death. But I guess that's only, and that would only be the case if your culture or your social being is such that or your social existence is such that in which death is death is not central. But if you are living in a society in which death is part of your daily life, like death, remembrance of death is part of your daily life, then probably that won't be true. Okay. So remembering your own death is important for remembering your loneliness, your being, ultimately on your own. And I guess if you realize that, then you face, and if you realize that, and if you face your loneliness in that way, then you open yourself to the possibilities. So being free for death consists in anticipating death as the possibility of the end of all possibilities. So this is not a concept, traditional concept of death, I guess. Although Heidegger, he grew up as a Catholic, and he does, when he rejected his Catholicism for Protestantism and basically modernity. But because he was raised as a Catholic, traditional Catholic, at least, in fact, he had seminary education, he still keeps some connection to that. So using the concept of death in a way is harking back to that tradition, his Catholic tradition, but which was dying, obviously. But he uses, in a way, or in the context of his acceptance of modernity. Anyway, so anticipating this possibility enables the other to be free for authentic existential possibilities. I mean, enables, not necessarily, obviously, you can still reject or you can still forget death, go back to your inauthentic self.